Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Mark Towler. I'm a Director of Product Marketing here at Catchpoint, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Pete Charlton, who is the AVP of IT Infrastructure at TMNAS Services and a longtime Catchpoint customer. Thanks very much for joining us today, Pete.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate it.
This is fantastic. We've had a great conversation, and we're going to dive right into it in just a second. There will be a Q&A opportunity at the end of this, as well as a brief poll. So with no further ado, I think it's time to dive right into our conversation because we've got a lot to cover. Can you give us a brief overview of what TMNAS Services does and how you guys are using Catchpoint?
So Tokyo Marine North American Services is a shared service division underneath Tokyo Marine Global. We provide IT, finance, HR, facilities, and legal services to our sister companies in the North American territories. We currently use Catchpoint for kind of the backbone of our monitoring. It provides us performance and availability metrics of all our critical systems, as well as our key infrastructure services. We then use that data to provide monthly, quarterly, and yearly service level agreement statistics.
That's fantastic. And your sister services, or sister companies, what exactly are they doing specifically?
Insurance. So we have several different insurance companies that we provide IT services for. So we're not as much of a edge browser-based applications. Most of our applications are internal. They are browser compatible, but we don't have a ton of consumer sites externally.
Fantastic. So how does Catchpoint add value to your organization?
So not only does Catchpoint obviously let you know what's available, when it's available, but the flexibility of the product allows us to monitor things beyond just browser-based applications. So the health of key infrastructure services such as DNS and network time protocol, as well as LDAP, and it also provides us performance and availability of like individual applications. So kind of knowing what's available and when it's available, if it's something that we host or if it's something externally hosted, it's able to provide us a tremendous amount of quality data to allow us to improve our operations as well as the operations of some of our partner companies.
Excellent. All right. So you mentioned, I think, DNS there. Is that something that you're often looking at, or is that just one of the many things that you're monitoring that you find useful?
It's one of the many things. Troubleshooting DNS can be, or DNS problem and kind of finding that or isolating that as the root cause can be quite painful. All that you just get the phantom, it's slow. So having visibility and knowing how our DNS servers and how our DNS services are behaving is it's extremely helpful for us. You want as much data as possible and the kind of monitor from as many angles as possible to isolate faults faster.
Fantastic. Do you use Catchpoint to assist with cloud migration at any point?
We do. So we have multi, cloud partners. I think that's the wave of the future for most companies. You trust but verify. So they have monitoring of their services. We always ask that before any sort of cloud implementation. But knowing the performance of availability of the cloud from within the cloud doesn't really give you, kind of the user's perspective. So we monitor our cloud partners. We provide them any alerting or metrics that we're able to capture to kind of help. They're a partner of ours, so we want to make sure that we have the best user experience, no matter where the application is hosted.
Got it. So that sounds like you're really taking advantage of the Catchpoint global observability network, and the fact that it's independent sounds like it makes a difference. Is that correct, or am I misreading that?
It is. It is. So, depending on the cloud partner, we either monitor from the Catchpoint nodes within our data center, or if it's publicly accessible sites, we leverage Catchpoint's points of presence throughout the world to kind of target where we want to monitor from, so that it helps eliminate, some variables, like our network as being the problem. If your application is slow from several different public nodes, then it's more than likely not our network. It could be, a regional problem. It could be a problem within your data center. So really, the flexibility, Catchpoint's global presence, it definitely is, kind of one of the differentiators from some of the competing products, and why we chose Catchpoint.
Fantastic. We've had the same sort of feedback in that it's hard to monitor the cloud when it's the cloud that's actually providing the monitoring capability, and the whole fox guarding the hen has piece. So we're delighted people find that valuable. So Pete, you mentioned just a moment ago having some partners, and I'm presuming that you've got SLAs with them. How do you monitor those?
So we treat our partners as if it was an application that we host. So we leverage Catchpoint, whether it's depending on how the application is available. If we only have tunnel to it, we leverage our on-prem nodes to generate performance and availability metrics, or we use several of Catchpoint's global points of presence to help monitor performance and availability. That type of data helps us kind of eliminate variables when troubleshooting with a partner, and kind of keep them honest on the SLAs that they have in place.
So have you ever used that kind of information to literally keep them honest, and or to call them out if they've missed an SLA target?
Yeah. So we've actually had a couple of examples where we've been able to proactively let a partner know that their performance has degraded over time. So it's a collaborative relationship. We don't like to go to the contract. They're our partner. They're helping us provide IT services for the companies that we support. So we've been able to use the raw data that Catchpoint keeps, and I believe our account's entitled to over 18 months. So I've been able to go back and pinpoint the exact date and time within a 7-minute window of when performance was degraded, and they were able to identify kind of like a load issue and add capacity that helped improve the performance for our users.
Well, that sounds like a really great, collaborative, and fantastic relationship. It's great that you can show them where the issues are. Can you give us an example of a problem you wouldn't have been able to solve without Catchpoint?
Yeah, so we have workforce monitoring implemented. We put that into place shortly after the pandemic started, and that's always been troubleshooting an end user experience from their workstation has always been challenging, especially when they're working from home. So with workforce monitoring, just the key metrics you get, CPU, memory, and then Wi-Fi statistics. So we're able to tell, like, all right, they're too far away from their wireless router or stuff of that nature. But we had a user who was quite honestly the most patient person I've ever come across in over 20 plus years of IT. She was having performance issues daily. She had probably, she would just, every time there was an issue, she would write down the date and time and what she was doing. And she had captured a log of well over 40 incidents. It was very difficult to troubleshoot because the applications that we support, we couldn't, we didn't see any issues there. So we added her machine that's already in workforce monitoring to a couple of additional tests. We started to pull bandwidth statistics, as well as do some trace routes to some public internet DNS servers to help eliminate variables. And when we went back to the user and let her know that she had really poor bandwidth, that she was only seeing about like 7 or 8 meg down, she let me know right away that no, she pays for 200 down from her ISP. So I asked her to go ahead and open a case with her internet service provider, which she did. And when they went and looked at her system, they noticed that her wireless router that they provided had not been replaced in over 10 years. So they replaced her wire router, no more issues, but I would have never been able to isolate that without workforce monitoring. There would have been a lot of guesses and assumptions, and I think it would have definitely strained the relationship with the customer. But we were armed with data and able to help improve her home internet performance, not only for work, but I'm sure that she's able to stream Netflix or other products even better now.
That's a fantastic story, and what a great example of a helpful, friendly user instead of the ones we normally encounter in IT, right?
She was super patient, and it was a really an enjoyable experience. She's way more patient than I am. But I'm glad that we're able to kind of get to the bottom of it for her.
Well, it sounds like it was a heck of a lot easier than trying to remote into her system and poking around. Glad we were able to be of service there.
Yeah, I've used the analogy in the past that Catchpoint's like having the mechanic in your car at all times. So we're able to pull those metrics 24/7, and be armed with data as opposed to making kind of some assumptions on oh, it has to be their ISP. No, now we know it was her ISP, or in some instances it isn't, and it's something else. But having the data is extremely helpful.
Do you, we were rebranding that workforce experience monitoring, but do you do that for all of your workforce, or only the ones that you're specifically trying to monitor and troubleshoot?
So we do it for our entire workforce. So if you have a laptop, the endpoint monitoring is installed on it, or workforce monitoring is installed on it. Apologies. What we do though is when there is an issue. So that with workforce monitoring installed, you get some key metrics: CPU, memory, Wi-Fi statistics, stuff like that. But we add users that are having issues to additional tests. So you can run a bandwidth test from their machine every 6 hours. You can ping, set up a trace route or a ping test, or a web page test, just to get some additional information. And because of how we connect into our environment, and that we leverage split tunneling and stuff of that nature, it helps us really isolate or eliminate variables. Maybe it's not their ISP, maybe it is an issue with our VPN or something of that nature. So, but yeah, everyone gets it.
That's fantastic. It's got to be a lot easier than trying to remote into the desktop and poke around and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I think I used the analogy in the past that it's like having your mechanic in the car at all times. So we're able to get a lot of that data 24/7, and we don't have to inconvenience the user who's already annoyed because they're having IT issues.
Nice. So, and this may be beyond the scope of what you're doing, but have you noticed an improvement in overall workforce experience? Are your users, are your workers happier, less likely to go somewhere else, less frustrated?
There's definitely less frustration on our point or our part. Um, but I would say that from the user experience, we're able to kind of eliminate assumptions by certain members of our support organization.
Very diplomatic way of putting it. I get it completely. It's been a big shift as everyone's shifted to work from home and hybrid work formats due to the pandemic. And we don't see that going away anytime. So we're always very curious to see how people are using our endpoint or workforce experience solutions, because we think they're becoming more and more important, and the companies are starting to realize this now.
Best to be armed with data.
Well, exactly. And in fact, one thing you mentioned a little earlier, you mentioned you went back 6 months for the data. I know we can provide up to, I think it's 3 to 7 years, depending on what you want to pay for storage. But is that something that you find useful, to be able to go and backtrack into the data and look 6, 8, 1 year, 6 months, 8 months, a year back?
I did have to do a little bit of forensic digging and pull statistics for like the past year.
No?
So it's been helpful.
That's good. Good. Glad we pride ourselves on being able to provide you with the data you need for as long as you need it. And speaking of which, I should say as long as we need it, you've been a Catchpoint customer for almost 10 years. First of all, thank you very much. And I guess if you recall, can you tell us why you chose Catchpoint and what's kept you with Catchpoint all this time instead of going after another potential provider?
So I've actually been a Catchpoint customer probably even longer, because it was with multiple different companies. So when I came to Tokyo Marine, we had a need, to get some proactive performance and availability alerting and monitoring. So at the time, shared service company, we provide IT services to several different companies. So Catchpoint's ability to create divisions and separate out the data was extremely helpful. Catchpoint's flexibility in creating multi-step transactions, some of my own personal familiarity with it, but I had actually Catchpoint. I booted a couple of competitors in two previous companies before I came on to Tokyo Marine, and at that point, it was some of the problems were the inability to do really long multi-step transactions, the inability to do screen capture on error, the points of presence online. So all of that flexibility, and then my personal experience with the support organization over the years was really it kind of what drives me to stay with Catchpoint. And they're putting in, you guys are putting in more and more capabilities into your product, such as the workforce monitoring and adding in some new types of tests. So that and actually taking the customer feedback. So a lot of those are the reasons why we went with Catchpoint. But the initial need was at Tokyo Marine was to set up the multiple divisions so that we could segregate out each group company's performance and availability metrics and expose that to the group companies without exposing them to data of the other sister companies.
Very nice. Again, thank you. But you just kind of mentioned the fact that there's additional features been added on. You, frankly, have been using Catchpoint for longer than I've been with Catchpoint. So I'm kind of curious, what have we added in the last 10 years that you found particularly useful or interesting? And looking forward, is there anything that you'd like to see that we haven't done yet?
So SMTP, NTP, DNS. Have all been added, as well as workforce. The holy grail of application monitoring is the dependency mapping, which definitely is something that we would like to see in the future. But the overall the enhancements to workforce, the constant updates to the latest browsers, increasing your points of presence online, the raw data that has become so trustworthy over the years. It really it's been kind of refreshing, and also the taking the feedback of the customer. So the API monitoring. So we have a substantial amount of APIs that we host and maintain, and being able to write those Selenium scripts to kind of monitor the performance and availability of that was a feature that we've been taking a tremendous amount of advantage over. But the core infrastructure services like DNS and NTP, like I have never worked at a place that reported. It was just assumed that your LDAP and your DNS is going to be available at all times, and we actually have data to kind of back that up and improve things. So we've had we had an issue with one of our NTP appliances, and we're able to capture that data, catch it proactively before it became a problem. So some of those features have been things that we've really enjoyed. I kind of pride myself on the WebExes for every release, just to find out if there's a new feature that has come out that I could take advantage of and work with my my account team to make sure that I'm entitled to it.
That is absolutely fantastic. I'm really glad you've been finding all of our updates and improvements important. And honestly, as I asked, I just thought to myself, this is stupid. I mean, you're telling me what you need, but we should get it over to the engineering team. I'm delighted to hear that you're in regular contact with them. And I know we've got a good reputation for looking at what our customers are looking for and trying to implement it. So that's fantastic that what we're trying seems to be working. And with that, unless you've got anything else you'd like to add, Pete, I think we can probably wrap this up and take a few questions because I know we've got some people watching. Any last thoughts?
Just thank you to Catchpoint for being such a great partner of ours. we really enjoy the relationship. It's been really positive, and we look forward to continuing it year over year.
Well, thank you, Peter. I can't speak for the entire company, but I think we're all blushing over here. And with that said, let's hold on 1 second. We'll answer some questions from our audience who's been very patient.
Hey, Mark, I think you're on mute. All right. Mark is on mute, so I guess I'm in charge now. So see a couple of questions. So I'll answer the first. I mean, as the customer, the smart aleck answer to what can Catchpoint improve upon is, I mean, it'd be great if it's free, but I'm fairly certain that they would not be in business, nor would we be on this call. But I mean, monitoring in general requires, constant improvement. You're never going to have a monitoring strategy that is perfect. You're going to have gaps, and you just improve upon it as things come up. All right, I hear you, Mark. You're back. So
sorry about that, folks. I don't know what happened there, but lost microphone. So I just to back things up, I threw up a poll there in case anyone wanted to know a bit more about Catchpoint, and I was just going to say let's dive into some of the questions and talk about incredibly valuable. Pete dived in and started answering a bunch of them to begin with. So that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Pete. Some of the other questions that we've received that have been submitted earlier. One question someone asked whether or not Catchpoint has the ability to use that workforce and endpoint monitoring to determine whether or not a specific user or employee is on a particular SSID. And I understand where they're coming from because I've seen this issue happen before where someone's moving around a building, ends up on a different SSID, and all of a sudden they're looking at a whole different level of latency and a whole different set of problems. I don't know if that's something you've ever run across before, Pete, but it is actually something that we can do within Catchpoint.
Yeah, we've also found that the band that folks are on, depending on where they are in their house. So like, for example, if you're sitting in an addition that is on the other side of what was once an exterior wall, but we found people that are on a certain gigahertz end up having some performance issues there. So just something to kind of keep in mind. So not just SSID, but also like the Wi-Fi band that you're running on.
Yeah, that's the fun part with Wi-Fi. Every once in a while, something interferes, and you'd never imagine. There's a particularly thorny bit of troubleshooting I can remember one of our customers dealing with, where one particular meeting room that wasn't used very often only had problems with the Wi-Fi between 11:30 and 1:30, and it took a while to figure it out. But they realized it was on the other side of a small kitchenette, and every time someone used the microwave, it absolutely screwed with the Wi-Fi and it added a lot of latency. So I can remember that particular IT guy saying it's the only problem I've ever solved with a sheet of tinfoil. Another question we've got here is, can you isolate issues down to the individual ISP? So determine whether it's Comcast versus AT&T. And again, that's a similar situation we've seen where someone may be having no problems, but then depending on if they move to a different location, all of a sudden they're using a different ISP provider. Again, answer to that one is yes, absolutely. Go ahead, Pete, if you had something, if you wanted to weigh in on that.
Yeah, so within Workforce, you can also apply tagging. So if you wanted to, create a tag that says that these are users that are, Comcast users in a region or something of that nature, you could do that as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. And here's one that just came in for you, Pete. As a Tokyo IT AVP, what do you see as the biggest challenge to monitoring the growing technology footprint of the business? Does or has Catchpoint offered you easy scalability with these solutions? And what's that look like over the next 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. So right now the biggest challenge is complexity, right? So everyone is going, depending on the business you're in. Now, I'm in insurance, so we're not bleeding edge by any means, but with different cloud providers, and then maybe you're doing your API mediation through a cloud provider, or like how you're connecting in, or you're consuming APIs from another cloud provider. So how all of your applications interconnect and how they integrate with each other, when it's not all sitting in a nice quarantined off data center, is a bit of an ongoing challenge. I do think that we're going to have to become more creative with our monitoring strategies, and kind of keep monitoring in mind as we're starting to develop or at least come up with new solutions that we're providing for our business users. So it's, as I kind of mentioned while Mark was having some audio issues, is that you're never going to have the perfect monitoring strategy. Sometimes something gets put into production that is behaving a way that you didn't really, or that is communicating with things that you weren't aware that it was going to be communicating with. So I had mentioned application dependency monitoring or mapping. If that's something that can happen in the future, just kind of having those visualizations helps when it's real-time stuff. I do know Catchpoint does offer some real user metrics as well, but because of our use case, we don't really take too much advantage of that. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and I'll just follow up with that one, Pete. Absolutely, real user monitoring is a key part of our offering, and we are continually introducing newer and more capable features based on what our customers are looking for. We're well aware that our customers are large and are scaling, and our goal is to support them as they go forward. I mean, obviously, the more they use us, the happier we are. So our global observability network is constantly growing. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but if I've given you a number, or if you see a number on the website, don't take it as gospel, because that's probably going to change within the next month. We're constantly adding new nodes, new locations, partnering with new areas to give us a broader footprint. Similarly, we do multiple launches every year where we add additional new features, including things that our customers are looking for. Some can be very specific, some of them can be very minor. Some of them, like, for example, internet weather is one that we're coming up with that's going to be tremendously valuable, things like that. So there's always constant evolution, and there's no upper limit from where we're sitting in terms of what we can do and how we can help people. So hopefully that answers that question. And again, if you want specific details, we'd be more than happy to chat with you about that. We are coming up to the end here, but I'm just going to mention we've got one last question that came in earlier, which is about APIs, and it's whether or not you can access Catchpoint data with APIs. And again, I don't know if Pete's taking advantage of this, but we can connect to almost anything via an API, REST API, or a variety of other tools, including webhooks. So we've got an entire page on our website that'll talk about it, but pretty much anything that you want to feed information into Catchpoint or extract information from Catchpoint, absolutely, we're set up for that. And of course, we can monitor the performance of those APIs as well. And with that, unless Pete, you had anything additional to add, I think we're coming up against time. And in the interest of being respectful of all of our attendees, we're going to wrap this up, I think.
Thanks a lot again for having me, Mark, and good luck to everyone out there. Hopefully you found this helpful, and it helps you create a better user experience for your organizations.
And thank you very much, Pete, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. This has been fantastic. Again, thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate your attention and your time, and we hope this has been useful. Have a great day.